Vincenzo's Go Crypto Investing this May the 27th, 2025, daily XRP, gold and silver bullion, cryptocurrency, XRP, and the blockchain that you've come to expect, love, need, and deserve once a day, every day. And this is our noontime update on his gorgeous, beautiful, seasonably perfect late spring day with high overcast moving in with a rising temperature of, and currently 68 degrees J from just north of downtown Detroit inside the mobile compound in the great state of Michigan, right? And on this Commodity Mondays, you can see the United States dollar has rallied a little bit right here. If we take a look at the U.S. dollar real quick into the daily time frame, we'll see that we had that major support on the U.S. dollar where we were below it, and we were coming off, and we've been in this rising channel, as we do know, where we have our major upper resistance, and we would have to zoom out. This has been over a 2-decade-long rising channel ever since 2024. You can see all the major support, and you can see all the major resistance levels, right? Resistance, 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 support back in 08, back again in 09, 11, 12, 13, 14, 17, 21, and now right now, and you can see from this swing high where they pretended to fight inflation with rising interest rates. We went from 114 all the way down to a swing low now of 97.67. And you can see we broke that major support level in the U.S. dollar. If we zoom back in here to the daily time frame now, you can see that major support level with the U.S. dollar. We broke that, came back to retest it and try to hold it as support, but now we've fallen through it. And now we're one step closer to confirming this as a major, major flip to resistance, which has been holding it as support this whole time ever since it ran back up through there in 2022. If it comes back up here now, or continues down, or it comes back and does this, or just goes down and does that, you're confirming it as a bearish flip and now a major upper resistance. And that's very, very bearish because your next underneath target in the dollar would be 92, which would be a low that was set back in 2021. And if you break that, the reason that was critical in 2021, because if you would have broke that area where you held, which was back in 2018, a bottom, and that's what you held in 21. If you would have broke that, what you would have got here is a fall all the way back down close to the 79 or the 2014 low, right? When it was starting to swing back to the upside after the financial crisis. And the problem is when the dollar goes down, inflation exacerbates and accelerates and worsens dramatically and exponentially as the U.S. dollar loses value to other currencies because you have to buy your goods that are coming from other countries in U.S. dollars. And if the dollar is getting weak and weaker, your value of that purchasing power is getting lower and lower. So this is very critical with the United States dollar. And we're going to continue to watch that. The U.S. Treasuries on this Commodity Mondays have, even as the Fed, which is interesting, and which is because of all the debt the country has, you can see the 10-year government bond, the yield on it went from zero essentially in 2020, and it came all the way up to 5.5, nearly 6%, right? And we had a target, and we put this up here when the channel first started, and interest rates were, the 10-year Treasury was still way down here. It was barely rebounding off that dump low. Interest rates have been manipulated since 1980. Fed has suppressed them since they hit nearly 20% as hyperinflation took over in the late 70s. I expect rates to hit 10% over the coming years, and that was made 6/6/2021. The prediction was made, and you can see interest rates over the last couple of years since that prediction was made have skyrocketed. And you can see if we go back to where 6/6/21, so they were somewhere up here at about 0.86%. So they were below a percent still. They were starting to rebound. They were right around in here, right? 2021. just below 1%. So we're up 380% interest rates, right? Since we made that prediction, because we understand the debt is astronomically high. And even now, as they're starting to lower interest rates last year after they paused the rate hike, the 10-year Treasury and longer-term interest rates, even as the overnight interest rates, the benchmark was lowered about a point from last year during their cuts, the long-term rates continue to stay elevated and going up, just like the government bonds haven't went down, right? Because there's so much debt, and that's something else that's very important to watch. And I still think that's going to eventually end up there near 10%. If we look at the gold bullion, we've had some choppy waters recently. We've almost hit our $3,538.69 target that was made from this cup and handle that we diagnosed, sniffed out, and detected again back in 2021, just after the COVID dump. This is a 20-year cup and handle. You can see the rise from the financial crisis, from the dot-com pop, the war with 9/11, and then the financial collapse in the housing market. You had this massive pump in gold. You hit the blow-off top. They started printing money in quantitative easing. You notice the rounding bottom forming the cup. Had the blow-off, double topping 14 years later, 2011, blow-off top, finally remet it in 2020 COVID pump, right? And then we got rejected, formed a neckline, which then you can see the cup. Then we had the handle. And when this price was at $1,650 in that little small blue circle in there, we diagnosed and sniffed this out for you and told you this is one of the most bullish macro patterns you can get, because it was a 2 decades going from 2000 all the way till now to break out. And we were telling you this was going to pump and pump big. And it's come all the way up now, almost to that target of an 83.69% to the upside, right? And we've been on it the whole time for you, and we were telling you we're going there. And eventually, after we break this in the Bitcoin or in the gold bullion price, I think we're going to 5,000 sooner rather than later. By that I mean within the next 5 years, I think we're going to hit $5,000 in gold, and within the next 5 years, I know we're going to hit $50 in silver. We're about to have a massive breakout to the upside, similar to what you've seen here during the COVID hysteria and the pump. But this time, I think it's going to shoot you to about $55 or $60. We're going to hit that $50 all-time high that you've hit back in 2011 and all the way back in the hyperinflation in the late 70s. You hit it again in 1980, very early in 1980. I believe and I know, and I'm forecasting, even though I'm not a financial advisor, that we are going to $50 in silver. That's why we're heavily invested in the bullion, silver, and gold mining sector. Heavily invested, right? And then I believe it's going to go up to $100 after that. Could it go up to $700 sometime if I live into my 60s or 70s? 100% I believe that. But in the shorter term, meaning the next 10 or 20 years, no, I do not believe that's going to happen. But in the longer term, meaning in my time, the next 10 years, I think $100 is going to happen. I know $50 is imminent, and I believe within the next 5 years, maybe as long as 10 years, I know $100 is going to get hit too. And the silver price, and that's why we own a bunch of these mining stocks, the B2 Golds, the Kinross's, the First Majestics, the Fortunas, the Pan America Silvers. I got about 300 and change of Rivian because I'm playing that for the long term. Currently up about 16% on that position, and then the Barrick Gold, right? And there's a reason why we own those. The Bitcoin price, you can see we've had a little bit low volatility today. We've been trading within about a range since yesterday. If we zoom into the daily time frame, you can see that range we've been trading in the last 2 days from about where we're at now, then selling off to lower support, right? You can see where the moving averages are underneath the Bitcoin price. We'll move that into the future. We'll update that. You can see the moving averages are fastly moving to the upside because the price is so elevated. If we zoom into the hour time frame, you can see we've been trading essentially just along the uptrend of this rising channel that we're in right now, the last 2 to 3 days. We're bouncing off support, but slowly squeaking our way higher and trying to take out the old all-time high. And now what we're watching for this week is, do we get this big, as we're holding this support again, are we going to get the next pump to the upside? And that would run you all the way up here, if you did it this week, to about the $119,669. And you notice that's our target over here, right, that we have. After we diagnosed that the price was continuing to pump, we noticed, oops, we didn't want to go, we could do it from there. We noticed a potential all-time high if this did break out to the upside, which it did break out to the upside, is when you looked at this, you would see a major neckline. Look at all that resistance and support. Then you had your double bottom here. Then we got to get rid of that. And you would go from the bottom of here to this major resistance and support zone. It was major support and resistance up here to the point of a breakout. And that's how we got our targeted move up there. And this would get you there in our rising channel. If this breaks out again to the upside and just follows what the pattern's been doing, consolidation, pump, rejection back down to support on the channel, consolidation, pump, all the way down, consolidation along support, pump. If this continues the same cycle, that's going to be how you get up to that target that we had up there and bring you to another new all-time high and continue to go back up to upper resistance in this rising channel. And that would be where your next target is if you do hold this major support level. If you fall through this major uptrend, you would come back down to the 50-day moving average and or that 97,000 and change major underneath support in the shorter time frame, right? If we go into the XLM price, you can see the XLM price is the same thing. We're still trading within that same general area as we've been for the last week to 10 days, and we're trying to decide, are we pumping to the upside? And we would quickly pump if we did to the next leg. In this rising channel would be up to 36 or 37 cents with major upper resistance at 43 cents sitting up there. But you can see we're trading, and you can see how constricted these are. They're all running parallel, and they're all running right next to each other, meaning the consolidation has taken place for long enough, and there's an explosion building. And these would look like the Bollinger Bands, very tight right now if you put the Bollinger Bands up on this. If you have your chart out, put the Bollinger Bands up, and you'll see how tight they are. It's going to have a massive breakout, and if it's to the upside, 36, 37 cents are in immediately, and then 43 cents is your major upper resistance to the upside right there, right? If this falls through the moving averages that you're fighting to stay on right now, you would come back to retest a major support zone that's been a major support zone for a very long time at the 25.5 cents, an area that you successfully held back here in March, April, and early May, where you had that last bounce. So that's what we're watching out for. This is your max potential on a major resistance point locally if this does break bullish to the upside and Bitcoin has another move to the upside, right? The XRP price is the same thing. It's in the same similar area as the XLM price, except the one noticeable difference is the 200-day moving average in the XRP price is much farther away from the actual price than the XLM price is, but the same structure of the market is still the same. We're in the same major area on the 50-day and the 100-day moving average. It needs to hold this, and you can make another run at the 255, right? And if you took out the 255, that's your next major upside resistance near near the Donald Trump induced high of what did it hit, about $3.60 or so. This would be your last major resistance to breaking that local high. And it all starts by holding the support here, and then you would pump quickly up to the 255. And then you would trade and break that out and go up to your next major target. If you fail to hold these, you would come slip really quick and retest that 209 neckline support. That's a major support, and you would expect to bounce off of that if you fail to hold where you've been trading along the 50-day and 100-day moving average for about almost 10 days now, right, in the XRP price. And that's what we're looking at in the XRP price. And as we do know in the long term, people are getting confused about the shorter term, where I've seen and diagnosed and gave the first mover advantage to the retail trader with the truth, trust, education, information, is I seen a short-term bearish trend that I thought would bring us all the way down here to $1.29. We got as low as $1.61, but it's being misconstrued by some of the audience members. I am still long-term very bullish, and there are eventually and going to happen a $4.69 XRP. That will happen, just like there will be a dollar XLM in the future. But I just knew there was going to be a big correction, and XLM went down from 63 cents to 20 cents, right? And I knew that was going to happen, and that's why I had to keep you guys out ahead of that. But don't misconstrue. This eventually will go to the $4.69 level, and eventually I think we might go to $10 or $12. That's going to take some time, but I think in the next year or two, we're going to $4.69, maybe sooner, but I don't think it's going to be 10 years before we go there, right? I just knew there would be a correction, and there has been a correction in the XRP price, and that's what I was trying to keep you guys out ahead of, and not FOMO in if you've never bought anything, or you were trying to accumulate thinking it was going straight to 10 after you did a great job of accumulating at $1, 50 cents, 30 cents, 80 cents, 60 cents, and you were going to just throw massive amounts of money and jack your average price way up to ruin what you built over a 2-year span. But it was only my own personal opinions. But I think we did a pretty good job there. We're going to continue to watch this. It's going to be a very exciting week. The nightly update will be here this evening. Peace and love to the beautiful audience. The Rock's Eyebrow. Jai.